Hi guys, in this tutorial I am going to be sharing how I made this Milkmaid dress. This tutorial is going to be in two parts. This is the first part and it's going to be focusing on how I drafted and cut out my pattern pieces, while the second part would focus solely on the sewing tutorial. Just in case this is your first time here, my name is Ayomide and on this channel I post sewing tutorials. Now let's jump straight into this tutorial. To begin with the pattern drafting, I have gone ahead to mark out my lines on my pattern paper. On this part of the pattern paper, I have the front pattern, and right here I have the back pattern. So what I'll do next is to modify these to the pattern that we are working on. For clarity, I will label up my lines. I have my waistline, I have my underbust line right here. I haven't marked my shoulder to bust, so I will just go ahead and mark my shoulder to bust measurement of 9.5 inches and also label that line for clarity and context purposes. So right here I have the bust line, and the line right above that is the chest line measurement. The next thing I will do is to mark my darts as always. So marking 3.5 inches, which is half of the bust span measurement, I would go over and draw in my dart lines. On the chest line measurement, I'm going to be marking a quarter of the bust measurements I'm working on. On the waistline, I would do likewise. I would mark a quarter of the waist measurements plus 1 inch dart allowance, which I marked right on the waist. I'll connect those points together. After that, it is time to draw in my cup. To draw my cup, I'm going to be marking 3.5 inches towards the side of my pattern on the bust line. 3.5 inches is half of my bust span measurement. Now, using this curvy part of my pattern master, I'm going to be drawing the shape of the cup that will connect from the dart line on the underbust, which will match up with that 3.5 inches and end on my armhole line. So it's just going to cut through a section of the armhole. After that is done, on the bust line, I'm going to be marking 1 inch inward to have a curvy parts around the cup area. I'll also use this curvy part of my pattern master to create that curve. You can also use your hand if you want. Now, to finish up the curve, I'm going to be connecting right from where the cup ended on the armhole line to end on my chest line. Now, this can go deeper than this. If you want yours to end on your bust line, that is fine, but for me this is ending on the chest line. This right here is my cup, and we are done with the front for now, so let us work on the back. On the chest line for the back, I went ahead to place a quarter of the bust measurement. On the waistline, I placed a quarter of the waist measurement plus 1 inch dart allowance. I connected those points together. Thereafter, I went to work on the armhole for the back. What I did was to measure out what I have left for the armhole for the front, and I have about 2 inches. So I just marked 2 inches around my back armhole. I marked that point and then I created my back neckline. Also, I went ahead to mark the zipper allowance along the center back. At this point, my camera was out of focus. My apologies for that, but I'm just going over to mark my 1 inch zipper allowance along the center back, and I also marked half an inch along the neckline for the back and half an inch along the armhole area. For all these allowances for the front, I'm going to be marking them directly on the fabric while I am cutting. I have cut out my pattern, and here's what I have. If I try to match up both the front and the back along the side, excluding the armhole allowance I marked at the back already, you would realize that my front is longer at the back than the back by about 1 inch. So I'm just going to be curving that measurement, that excess, into my dart line. You can use a bust dart for this, but I just decided to use this trick by taking it off along the waistline, and it will not affect your measurements. So guys, bringing my pattern pieces together, you would see that they now match up very well along the sides. Now it is time for me to work on the cup. The first thing I will do is to detach the cup from the pattern, from the front pattern. After that, I am going to be marking about 1.2 inches apart because I'm going to be splitting this cup to create more volume. So marking 1.2 inches apart, I'm drawing in my lines, and then I'm going to be labeling them. I'll go by numbers using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so I can know which is which. Thereafter, I'm going to be splitting this cup. So you see why it is very important for you to label so that you don't get these things mixed up. So guys, after that, I'm going to be grabbing a fresh pattern paper, which I'm going to be using for the slash and spread. To get started with the slash and spread, I'll grab my sellotape and the part of my pattern I labeled 1 and then place that on the fresh pattern paper. I'll grab my measuring tape and measure 1.5 inches apart, which is how wide I want to spread. Grab the part of my pattern I labeled 2 and then use my sellotape to also place it down on the new pattern paper. After that is done, I'll grab my measuring tape again, measure 1.5 inches apart, grab the part I labeled 3 and also use my sellotape to place it down. This is how I'm going to be repeating for the other ones, which would be 4 and 5. So guys, I'm done. Now, in order to ensure a smooth neckline, what I'll do is I'll try to close up those patterns. So matching up 5 with 4 as if I'm closing it up. I'll grab my tracing wheel and try to match up the neckline and also around the curve at the bottom. So I'll just use my tracing wheel to trace that neckline down. I would also fold over the other ones, use my tracing wheel to connect them together so that I can have a smooth neckline as it should be. So I'm going to be using the tracing wheel on the neckline and also at the bottom part of the cup. When I was done with that process, I just used my marker to highlight the lines that my tracing wheel generated for me. So once that is done, I cut out my pattern. So guys, I have my patterns right here. I have the cup area and the underbust to the waist area for the front. I also have my back pattern here also, and I'm going to be cutting all of these on the fabric, which I'm going to be showing us next. To cut out, I'm going to be placing my fabric into 2 and then place my pattern on it. I'm using this lush crepe. I love the texture and the feel of this fabric. So guys, if you notice, you realize that I will also cut out on the lining. So for the upper parts, for the bodice area, I'm going to be lining it for a smooth and a neat finishing. So placing my pattern on my fabric, pinning them down, I'll grab my scissors and then cut all of this out. I am done cutting out, guys, and here's what I have. This is the underbust to the waist area. And I've also got my cup. For the cup, I splitted it into 2 along the center front. So you're going to be having 2 fabric pieces for the main fabric and 2 fabric pieces for the lining. I also have the back fabric piece here. So guys, in the next tutorial, I'm going to be sharing how I made it into this beautiful dress that you're seeing. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, kindly click on the subscribe button below. Also, turn on your notifications so you can become notified anytime I post a new video on this channel. My name is Ayomide, guys, and until my next tutorial, stay blessed and have a wonderful day wherever you are on this face of the planet. Goodbye.